Black Clover Judgement Day is here. Today I talk about 3 important points that could change Black Clover forever and make the final saga one of the best in Shonen Jump, with Lucius Zogratis as one of the most overpowered main villains ever. First, it's possible that Judgement Day could be something like the beginning of a zombie apocalypse, where any character who dies at the hands of a paladin immediately becomes a paladin themselves, with Jack potentially being the first victim. This would create an exponential paladin growth, which I think is the only way every single person could be turned into a paladin in just a short amount of time. Second, Lucius' new magic could be called literally God magic. I explain why he might be able to create a paladin network that not only provides paladins with a Dark Tride's regeneration magic and Lucius' soul magic ability to turn other people into paladins, but might also work the other way around, so that each paladin within that network might be able to provide their own magic to Lucius in return, giving Lucius control over all magic in the world, just as Sister Lily described. And third, Lucius might be able to resurrect all 27 previous Wizard Kings and Queens, unless for some reason Tabata decides to weaken Lucius' paladin ability, because otherwise he will become far too overpowered. In the last chapter we saw about 30 lights coming from the sky with a little child who says they see angels, suggesting that each of these lights could represent a new paladin. 30 is not exactly 27, but definitely enough to say that it could include all the Wizard Kings. We should not forget that not only the Wizard Kings are worth resurrecting, but also other strong characters such as Licht. I will explain everything in this video, pros and cons for this theory, and how, even if there's a restriction that prevents Lucius from resurrecting people from the afterlife who have already died long before Lucius was born, he might still be able to use time magic to retrieve the dead souls of former Wizard Kings and Queens from the past. Let's start with the first topic. It seems that so far there are 2 types of paladins that can be created in 3 different ways. Paladins can be created either directly from the living or from the dead. These are the 2 types so far. As for the direct transformation into a paladin, we have seen that Lucius himself must do this by mixing a purified devil soul with a living soul. So this paladin version must most likely be created by Lucius directly, since he's the one who can manipulate souls. And since living souls are bound to the living body, only Lucius Zogratis, who has direct access to a human soul, can do that. However, it seems that paladins have also received a limited version of this power from Lucius, with which they can turn humans into paladins by killing them. The reason why paladins can't turn humans into paladins directly could be that they simply don't have direct access to the human soul like Lucius Zogratis. But when a human dies, the soul of the human leaves the dead body to enter the afterlife, as the elves described it when Licht said that Tetya was waiting for him while their souls went to heaven. Thus, by the souls leaving the body, the paladins could have direct access to the souls. So there are 2 possibilities. First, it could be that paladins can use these free souls to turn them into paladins, or Lucius has cast a spell with mana zone on a specific area, possibly even the whole world, which takes every free soul and could turn it directly into a paladin, so any soul that leaves a body. We have already seen a few hints of this idea. For example, Ryo has said that the paladins are able to resurrect the dead, which is why it was so important to evacuate the entire island to prevent the people from becoming paladins. Ryo indicated that this was the ability of the paladins and not Lucius Zogratis. And to be totally honest, the mana zone that will reach to the land of the sun might be a bit too extreme. However, I wouldn't rule out this possibility due to the fact that Lucius can provide the paladins with magic from that far away and maybe even control them. We have seen how the paladins were somehow able to revive the dragon that had died hundreds of years ago and turn it into a paladin. According to my explanation, the paladins should not be able to revive souls that have already entered the afterlife. However, there's a small detail that must be taken into account. There's a possibility that the soul of the dragon never left the land of the sun, but instead was sealed in this Torii Gate. These gates are strongly associated with spiritual worlds in Japan, where a gate could often be the entrance to a certain soul's domain. So in Black Clover it could be that this gate had sealed the soul of the dragon, whereby by destroying the gate, the soul was freed and summoned with the help of beast magic, whereby the Paladins thus gained direct access to the soul and could transform the dragon into a Paladin. However, if Paladins are not able to turn free souls into Paladins, then this would confirm that Lucius is using a spell with the help of Mana Zone continuously throughout the world, which turns any free soul directly into a Paladin. Whatever the case may be, this confirms that everyone who dies is directly transformed into a Paladin, even if these persons then most likely do not carry a purified devil soul, at least not one that gives the Paladin another magic ability, as was the case with Sister Lily. For that, Lucius would probably have to be directly involved to decide which of the purified devil souls to use. This whole concept is pretty much like a zombie apocalypse. The Paladins are trying to kill as many people as possible, increasing their numbers exponentially, while the humans are getting fewer and fewer until they finally cease to exist and Lucius becomes the sole ruler of the world. In my opinion, this is the only reasonable explanation of how Lucius can turn the entire world population into Paladins in such a short time. This then explains the meaning of the Undying Body spell. Lucius said that in order to create peace, they must first destroy humanity and only then recreate them with immortal bodies. And the last way to create a Paladin is for Lucius to use the Dark Triad magic to create an artificial body to revive souls that were long dead. Of course, the question is whether Lucius can do this with any soul that has ever existed, or if there are certain restrictions, such as he can only revive souls that have died within a certain period of time in the past. For example, since his birth, or since he might have used a certain spell that could be responsible for intercepting all the souls that wanted to ascend to the afterlife, which Lucius could then somehow store. This contradicts the theory that everyone who dies now could automatically turn into a Paladin. But one has to keep in mind that the Paladin spell was activated only at a certain point in time, so that maybe the zombie apocalyptic system was activated only since Judgement Day. Otherwise, people who died due to old age would have become Paladins. That makes no sense. Or as mentioned, maybe only those people who are killed by Paladins become Paladins. That Lucius collected and stored the souls of people somewhere is likely, because he specifically used the soul of Beelzebub for Sister Lily, so he must have stored that soul somehow, which is why he could do the same with human souls. Otherwise, one must assume that he has access to the afterlife and can therefore revive any soul. We'll talk more about that in a moment when we talk about the Wizard Kings and Queens. Now let's move on to the second topic of the video, Lucius' God Magic. To understand his God Magic, we need to understand how Lucius provides the Paladins with all these abilities in the first place. It seems that the Paladins receive 3 abilities because of an invisible connection to Lucius. First of all, the ability to turn the dead into Paladins, although how exactly this works has not yet been fully explained. This ability comes from Lucius' soul magic. Furthermore, all Paladins also receive the regeneration ability, which most likely comes from the magic combination of body, bone and blood magic, that is, a combination of the magic abilities of the Dark Triad that were inside the cocoons. And also it seems that the Paladins might have a collective consciousness or something similar. Sister Lily knew all the details about Lucius, such as his power and his plan, and also that his godlike magic is not yet complete. Everything about the Dark Triad, as well as his ultimate goal to control the magic of the whole world. It is highly unlikely that Lucius told her this. Why should he? The Paladins obey him anyway. There's no reason why he should waste his time explaining his plan in such a detail to mere puppets. Immediately after her transformation, she already seemed to know everything necessary. Taking all this into account, one could assume that all Paladins are possibly connected to Lucius and thus maybe even to all others, like in a network. So a collective consciousness. This could be very dangerous considering that the Dark Triad as well as Lucius can share their magic directly with all Paladins. which means that Lucius could have the ability to spread magic abilities through this network. The only thing that could argue against this is the assumption that these cocoons are responsible for distributing the Dark Triad's magic. However, there's also the possibility that these cocoons were used for simply combining their magic, so we don't know the use of the cocoons yet. But if there's indeed a Paladin network, and if Lucius can distribute magic through this network, then the question arises whether the Paladins could also share their own abilities with Lucius, just as he can share his abilities with them. Could this even be the true meaning of what Sister Lily has revealed? That Lucius is planning to take control of all the magic in the world? Thus, Lucius would be able to use hundreds of different magic abilities. That would be crazy. A true god magic. Theoretically, there's also the possibility that all the magic could be shared with all the other Paladins at the same time. While we haven't seen that yet, it must also be taken into account that Sister Lily has clearly confirmed that Lucius' magic is not yet complete. But in my opinion, this would be too much. I would very well like to limit this to Lucius only so that he can become the ultimate villain. The fact that Asta has the ability to interrupt the Paladin's spell supports the idea of an invisible connection to Lucius. Sister Lily lost her Paladin form all of a sudden and couldn't regenerate herself either. Since her soul was already altered, she fell into a deep sleep, which means that souls altered by Lucius cannot function on their own. This is another indication of a connection to Lucius. And now we come to the last part of the video, the resurrection of the Wizard Kings. Have you ever wondered why not a single previous Wizard King was shown or even mentioned in Black Clover? Aside from the first Wizard King, and aside from the movie which hasn't been released yet and won't be until the Wizard Kings might appear in the manga, if this theory proves to be true. As I explained in the introduction to this video, there's really no reason why Lucius shouldn't be able to resurrect any previous Wizard King unless there's a specific limitation that Tabata will use to weaken Lucius' god magic. We have already talked about it. But let's face it, the only reason for this limitation would be because Tabata realized that Lucius might be way too strong if he can just resurrect all the souls that have ever existed out of thin air and give them an artificial body. Understandable. We're talking about billions of people here, but unfortunately that would mean that almost none of the previous Wizard Kings could ever appear in the manga. And that's wasted potential in my opinion. Just imagine how 27 Wizard Kings, who have always defended the land, suddenly become the enemies. That will be crazy. Of course, not only Wizard Kings but also Heart Kingdom Queens and the Green Burial family and so on and so forth. Maybe even shoguns, and rulers from the Diamond Kingdom. Maybe Tabata could have found a way for Lucius to resurrect at least the previous Wizard Kings without being able to resurrect every person who ever existed. One solution to this would be for Lucius to find a way to use time magic to combine his Paladin spell with some sort of time travel, to gain access to the exact times the Wizard Kings died in order to extract the soul directly. This information could probably be written down in documents of the Clover Kingdom to which Julius as the Wizard King definitely had access. Perhaps the place where the Wizard Kings died should also be known, due to the fact that the movie more or less proved that it could be possible to resurrect previous Wizard Kings. We shouldn't ignore that possibility. But this would only work for the Wizard Kings of Clover Kingdom because Lucius will lack the information of the other kingdoms, unless he somehow manages to gain this knowledge, for example by controlling the Heart Kingdom's grimoire. By the way, Morris has already done that. Maybe Lucius will somehow manage to use this information. So the conclusion is that it really depends on how powerful Lucius really is and whether there are limitations that he might be able to more or less bypass with time magic. What do you think of this theory? Let me know in the comments. If you want to see more Black Clover content, then subscribe to this channel with the notification bell activated for weekly content. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye.